I didn't know narcissists exist. I didn't even know the pain I harbored inside my body.
Rain has been terrified to share this personal information about her parents and her upbringing and the way she was raised.
I was wrong all along, protecting one against the other, thinking this one, and then shifting it and noticing it's not helping either.
Why is it so hard to expose the truth about your parents?
So as an adult, I was still dealing with all that. And remember, I just left a narcissistic relationship. I was suicidal. I was looking for therapy. I was looking for any help. And then that happens.
And this is the first time that she is going to open up about it. Rain has been terrified to share this personal information about her parents and her upbringing and the way she was raised. And this is the first time that she is going to open up about it. So not only did she have one narcissistic parent, but she had two. I can't imagine what that would be like, having two narcissistic parents and how that would affect you. So, Rain, I want to start by asking, when did you know that your parents were narcissists? How do you even figure that out? Because obviously, as a little girl, you're just kind of living your life, feeling whatever's going on. So, when did you find out that they were narcissists, and how did that affect you?
Well, Mel, okay. So, of course, I'm terrified to talk about this at this moment, but I'm hoping that they don't watch this episode ever. But this is just to be able to, I was talking to you about this earlier, to free myself instead of only talking about my narcissistic partners, to talk about the essence of it. So, in answering your question, I discovered that I thought one of my parents was a narcissist, and that was my mom. Although my whole life I was terrified of my father because he was scary to be around. However, and I was always protecting my mom, thinking I need to defend her and take care of her, to only discover, I think at the age of 30, oh my God, like 36, 37, something like that, 35, 36, something in the range of there, that it dawned on me. It was after my first marriage where I was exposed to narcissism. And I was like, wait a minute. But it was nothing close to what my mom was like. I just felt the same energy around her, like I did with my narcissistic ex-husband, the first one. But just knowing that feeling inside, and whenever I get close to her, I would feel it again, which I never felt before, or I wasn't aware of what I was feeling before. So at around the age of 34, 35, I was like, is it possible that all along I've been protecting the wrong person? And my dad's the victim, and that's why he was so angry and upset all the time and controlling and all the stuff, because she was the narcissist and maybe he's the victim of her. And it's the hardest part was having to figure out which one of the parent is, because every article I read, every YouTube I watched, everyone I asked in person, all the professionals would say, well, a narcissist attracts an empath. And you never hear or read about two narcissists ever. Like, I searched everywhere. I called, I made phone calls, I asked professionals. Everyone was saying, no, two narcissists cannot be together. They cannot survive. So I had to choose one of the two. Right. And it made sense that it was my mom. And it was more of a covert narcissist, always in a state of victim, always in a state of pain, always needing everyone to protect her. So I was always the adult. Right. So it was at that age. So I had to change my paradigm. So for a few years, I lived with like, oh, so my dad's the good guy. My dad's the poor guy. And it's my mom. And then a few years later, where I decided I didn't care what all the research was saying. I'm like, there's something so weird about this dynamics. It's absolutely insane. I feel crappy around both all the time. I feel like I'm walking on eggshells. I feel uncomfortable in who I am. One is really aggressively loud about it, and I don't know when they'll explode into anger, which is my father. And the other one is constantly in a state of victimhood and shaming me for like not calling enough, not being there enough, not doing enough, not, all that stuff. and the other one's constantly being aggressive and angry, like I'm not allowed to show my feelings, not allowed to speak, not allowed to breathe, not allowed to have an opinion. I have to look a certain way, act a certain way, be presented a certain way. So I was like, but it can't be like, but none of them have like this kindness in them, this kindness, the need to hug and truly care for. So then later on, a few years later, I was like, I don't care what everybody in the articles are saying. I know that they both are. And it really, really, really hurt because I had no one to depend on anymore. And it felt really lonely. And this is like, I'm not even 12. This is, I'm 30 something. So it's not like, well, I'm 12, so I discovered this, but now I'm a mature woman. And so it's fine to get rid of this. It's like all of a sudden, my backup, one diminished and then the other left. And I was wrong all along, protecting one against the other, thinking this one, and then shifting it and noticing it's not helping either. And then noticing, oh my God, both. After I decided that this is the truth of what it is, and I don't care what anyone says that only narcissists are with empath, a year later, I started noticing an article here and an article there talking about narcissists actually getting married. So I didn't need, I kept looking for someone or something um, to help me be okay with this knowledge I have. And that's the scariest part. I think it's terrifying to admit, to come to terms, because I believe that we all want at least one parent where we can say they're kind of similar to me, they're like me, or they were the victim, or I want to stand by their side, or I want to be there for them, or now I can see them with a new light. And the shock is, if neither are, it's really harsh. It's really harsh. Yeah.
Wow. Yeah, that sounds like in a really intense upbringing of just no safety or support, of like even knowing what that feels like, of that level of security and love. Like that's got to be a lot to carry. Something I wanted to ask you, why is it so hard to expose the truth about your parents? Because I know you haven't wanted to talk about this for a while, and you've even written books that don't talk about any of this with your parents. You just talk about your partners. So that's the question I want to ask. Why is it so hard to talk about exposing the truth of your parents?
Okay, so it's terrifying actually. It's terrifying to expose the truth. I remember that as a child, or my whole life, we lived in a family environment where we weren't allowed to speak about our parents or anything that's happening behind closed doors. So if my dad was angry all the time, my mom was a victim, and there was fighting and arguments in public, because we were always like invited out to parties and dinners and events and dressed to the T. But out externally, my dad was very funny, and so was my mom. My mom was a ballerina, so she's also pretty, and dad was so handsome. And so there was this energy and an act. There was a show. We were on show, on display all the time. And I would pretend also to be like the best daughter in the world. Like, I'm my dad's favorite and my mom's, favorite, and my siblings the same thing. And so there was this two personalities in a sense. So they would hide, we were taught to hide what was really happening, and that it wasn't because we're hiding it because it was bad. We were just hiding it because, families have secrets, and families don't talk about their personal things. And, we have this image to maintain. So as the years kept going, it's like it's a program, so we were being programmed. I was being programmed that whatever you see in the house, you keep that smile on, you talk to no one about it, you suffer alone. So I had no one to turn to. So even when I went through my narcissistic partner abuse, and I wrote the book Happily Ever After, explaining the shock of it, I didn't expose what my mom was doing during that period or what my dad was doing. Yes, my dad was heroic. He came and he saved the day and got me divorced and poured the money in there. I do come from a family with a lot of money, so that's how he would save me. But there was so much pain in the middle because he was unavailable. He didn't want to hear me. He didn't want to be there. He just flew in, did the thing, and flew back out. you know, didn't take care of anything and just left me there alone. My mom didn't even come because my sister was giving birth, and my sister also is an intense narcissist. My sister was giving birth, who was also my best friend at the time. And she chose, no, your divorce and your wanting to commit suicide is not as relevant as your sister giving birth to her second child. She needs me and she's not letting me go. So she was the victim of it too. She's like, I'm trying my best and I can't because your sister needs me. And I'm like broken down. I'm living out of friends' houses because there's nowhere for me to stay. I'm having this narcissist send me flowers and me so confused because I still didn't know what narcissism was, but they weren't there in the way that you expect anyone who loves you to be there. So this hiding the truth of who they are is what we survived on in our lives. So to even expose them in a book, the freak out was, what if they read the book, which they never did, right? And the freak out is, if I ever talk about them anywhere or what I actually went through, I can only talk about my relationships and make them out as heroes. Always make them out as heroes, because that's what I was taught. They have to look good in public. So that's where the fear is, and that's the fear I'm trying to break right now. Although like my heart is beating so fast and like I'm choking and I'm like hoping they do not watch this, because the consequences are going to be severe. But I think it's really important to explain it so that everyone and anyone until today who's still in that fear space inside can understand that you're not alone, and that's okay. And I've been a healer for like 17, 18 years now, and it doesn't matter. At the end of the day, there's still that terrified version of me of like, but I was taught not to say this. But I was taught only to say, oh, dad is so funny and he cooks so well. And oh, and mom is beautiful and she's a ballerina. And that's all I'm allowed to say. And to actually say what I'm saying now is is causing me a lot of panic and a lot of stress, to be quite honest.
Oh my gosh, my just whole heart is just like going out to you right now. Like I know this experience. I went through that same thing too when I was starting to open up and share things about my upbringing. And it's just amazing to see the how far and how deep this goes. Stuff it's childhood, and even when we're adult, it's like you can't just get over some of these things. It is completely in every fiber of our being. The fear. It's like you've been programmed a certain way, and it's all these programs that we talk about, the programming, the domestication to and being the good girl and all the swirling stuff in our heads. And it's just, oh my gosh. Anyways, I just appreciate you being vulnerable and real about this, because I know it's scary. And I just really appreciate it, because I think the world needs this. And I think we need this. We got to start with us, not trying to give everything to everybody else, but you deserve to feel free inside your body. Your voice matters. Your truth matters. And I just want to give other people permission as well, as we're being vulnerable and sharing this. So thank you for sharing that and talking about this. There's a lot to talk about with this, because it's obviously affected you as a child and it's affecting you still now. Like you said, even as a healer, and you help so many people through narcissistic relationships or just really anything and everything, going through their limiting beliefs. And still, we're still human and we still have our hurts and our pains. So how I want to know, I want to get into this. We're going to get into the adult too, but like as a child, how did this affect you with these parents? How did you feel? Did you, yeah, just how did that affect you as a child? What do you remember your upbringing being like?
Well, as a child, just a quick note from my mom's side of the family, it was very spirit. They were religious, but very spiritual based. So my grandma was a healer. She could trap, people could see her here and there. She teletransported. She healed a lot of people. She would get phone calls from all over the world. She knew what the weather was like. She saw angel beings. She saw demons and got rid of them a lot of time. She was just a magical being. So from my mom's side, that's another thing why mom to me was the victim, because it didn't compute in my head. Well, she comes from this family background that's so highly intuitive, and they like they do magical stuff, incredible stuff, and people, they find, my grandma would find missing people. If they're dead, she'd know where they are, missing items, she'd know things. She was truly a magical being. So for me as a child, seeing her I couldn't ever assume that my mother was anything other than similar to my grandma, which she wasn't. And even if she was, a lot of people do have superpowers. I mean, we all as humans have superpowers, which I understood later, but you can have superpowers and be a piece of shit. And you can have superpowers and be an amazing person, right? It's like when we watch the superhero movies, the villains have superpowers, right? But we assume, or I assumed also as a child and as a grown up, oh, if somebody is telepathic or they know how to psychically see the future, or they're able to figure out what your shadow is or try to get rid of evil spirits or whatever, that means they must be a good person. That's not necessarily true at all, actually, because we all have these abilities. So dark forces can ignite them and light forces can. So this is not a good person just because they have magical abilities. And that's what I was confused about as a child. So then, of course, my dad was the demon, the demonic entity that my mom couldn't live with and was exhausted and tired. So as a child, a lot of me, because I used to see entities also and all this crazy stuff. What I did is I was always in this bubble form, like in my happy joy bubble form, and I used to call it Planet X. I was always daydreaming, always talking to something or others or some sort, and I always called it Planet X. So I was always there. So whatever mayhem was happening and arguments, I was kind of shielded in a sense because I was daydreaming. So it's as if I would block it out. So I knew how to block out the environment, not see the environment, and live in my own world. But they couldn't leave me in there, right? Because I was the eldest. And so mom would drag me and need to tell me all the misery she's suffering and how horrible marriage is and how I need to get married to somebody who loves me more than they love than I could love him. And it was constant, and she'd have her female friends around for morning coffees, and they would all be complaining about their partners and then talking wonderful things about the women who have their husbands wrapped around their finger and get everything, and how horrible it is that they couldn't do that. So there was constantly this, I'm hearing all this and I'm taking all this in, and I'm constantly like calming her down, talking to her. I would actually buck it up and go to speak to my father, which is the most terrifying thing because he's just so angry all the time. And he too is always a victim. He's never apologizes. It's all about him, how he feels for him. So, but I would go and talk to him and be like, you need to be kinder, you need to do this. And I was like 9. So it's not like I had that much wisdom about relationships, but that's kind of the upbringing. I had to also be the good girl with my siblings and make sure that I am a good representation. I was brought up also that I'm like thinking, oh, mom can't provide dad with the wife that he's looking for, which is presentable and is quiet at the right time and speaks at the right time, very, very controlled. So I became that for dad. We would go out to dinners and I would make sure that I'm presentable. When I'm supposed to laugh, I laugh. When I'm supposed to talk, I talk because I'm also very social. So I never had inhibitions with others. So I would be the social, right? And mom and dad, and then, so I take her role. If he needed to travel, I would travel with him because mom wouldn't because she's broken or whatever. So I had to take on a role of a wife, but I wasn't really a wife. There was no sexual or anything like that or any of that sort. It was the wife of like, here, I'm proud of this daughter who's an extension of me. But I didn't see that. I just wanted him to appreciate me. And I wanted him and mom to get along. And I was like, if I can give him what my mom is lacking, then he'll stay. And maybe he won't demand so much of her. So we were moving homes every few years. So we would pack up our homes, move to a new country, unpack. My mom was in charge of all that and getting us in schools and doing our homework. And dad would come back and he would do homework with me, but scream at me and yell at me and put me down. So I had a very high IQ. And due to him being so aggressive and humiliating and condescending, especially with one of my favorite topics, which was math. I loved math. I was a genius. Like my scores were so high. But because of how much he would humiliate me, and I was terrified, and I would start to daydream because I wanted to go to Planet X all the time when he would be teaching me, and he would yell at me that I would shut down, my grades started to go down. And my belief in myself kind of disappeared, that I wasn't the genius that the grades showed before, that I am a failure. I mean, I can't even impress my father in math, and he's a mathematical genius. And so I was in an environment that was constantly teaching me that I'm not good enough, that I'm only good if I'm smiling and I have no emotions and I am there for my parents 24 hours a day, either being a wife image for him or the counselor and therapist for mom, which at the end, of course, helped me in doing what I do today, right? Because with mom, I had to be highly intuitive and receive information all the time to make her feel better. And with dad, I also had to receive a whole bunch of information of what is the kind of female that he'll enjoy her company so that he won't leave our house. And this went on most of my life, actually. I became that person that they would turn to for anything, stupid or big. If my sister got married and she was having a hard time with her husband, and she was living in Sweden, and I'd be in Canada doing my thing. They would be like, phone call, you're going to Sweden now to fix your sister's relationship with her husband, and they would fly me. They would buy my ticket and they would fly me whether I wanted it or not. And if I didn't, because I would argue a lot, they would say, you're selfish, you're self-centered, all you care about is yourself, your sister's in a terrible place, you got to go fix it. And they would ship me there. And the same thing with my brother when he got married. I had to be in the middle of it with them. So, but then they would fight with me and put all the blame on me after I would fix something or expose something, because all I see is truth. I can't do their lies. I never knew how to play the game of lies. So I learned also how to shut my voice. So it was really a very tough childhood. The thing that did save me was Planet X and my grandma and my brother, to be quite honest, because me and him would sit and just philosophize about life. I mean, we were tiny and we would just be like, how would life look like if we closed our eyes? Would everything still exist or would it disappear? And that's the kind of world we were in. And that was the world that was the safest world I had. But my family in particular was extremely dangerous to be around because I didn't know when the shit would hit the fan, and it would hit the fan so frequently. Um, and all I had was trust of source. I had nothing but source to trust in, and I disassociated. So if I was sad, if a friend did something to me in school, if I felt anything and I went to complain about it from my mom's side, which is the very covert narcissist, the story wouldn't continue. So I'd be like, oh my God, this happened with my friend. It really hurt my feelings. Oh, you know what happened to me? My friends did this to me too. And the story would be taken over. So that's the covert, right? Where the topic is completely taken over and then you don't know what to do because you haven't been addressed, but you're like, but maybe this is helpful. So it's this whole confusion of like, but was I hurt? With dad, on the other hand, I would never dare to share any emotion. If I would share an emotion, this look of disgust would come on his face. Like I could see the disgust of like, who do you think you are to talk about you ever and how you feel? And I remember very clearly, since I was a stick, I was so thin that my elbows were bigger than my arms. And that's how I was most of my life. But with me specifically, my father would sit and don't eat that, because he has a weight problem. Don't eat this. You've eaten too much of that in public, in front of people, alone for dinner. So I hate dinner tables. I hate seated dinners. If I go to a restaurant, once I'm done eating, I want to get out of there as fast as possible. The sitting down to me feels very dangerous. You know, even though I'm consciously aware of it, I don't like it. So that was kind of the childhood that I was in. Was I aware? No. To me, this was normal. I thought this is how everyone lived. I was totally unaware and I was completely disassociated. There was rain here and there was rain here. And we were two completely different beings. One lived on Planet X, which I only would get in touch with rarely, and the one that was constantly being tugged on all the time, humiliated, shamed, and criticized.
Wow. Wow, that's intense. I'm just hearing like so much projection from your father of like all the things that were his own that he was just putting on you as this sweet, innocent little child. That then, as this tender heart looks up to her parents and believes them, is just internalizing it and feeling like, oh, he's right. Oh, I do need to watch my weight. Oh, I'm wrong. Oh, I did talk, all these things where it's really just their projection. But we don't learn that a lot of times until we're later in adults. Some of us adults, it takes us a while too. That just sounds just super intense. And also, I just realized, like you said, we kind of look like this perfect family. We look perfect, and you guys had money and were wealthy and have all this. And it's just another point to make people aware of a lot of times we look at other people and we look up to them like, oh, we wish we had that. We wish we had that. But if you were to just open a tiny little window and peek in to see what's going on inside that home, it's really not what you're wanting. So it's just another reminder of the grass isn't always greener on the other side, and it's not worth it. I would not want to have all this money and have all these things and big homes and flying and all these things that come with it, to know that that's the home you were raised in, to feel suffocated, to feel like you had to check out and to like go somewhere else anyway. So you're like not even present for that life and the money and all the things. It's just like, it's really not that exciting of a thing or all these things to have. Oh, that's just sounds like a lot.
No, it wasn't exciting. I even had a friend a few years ago after I published my book, and she read it. And it's interesting because that's when I actually saw how people take wealth or rich people, and she wrote a comment and the review of my book, and she's like, oh, I didn't know rich people also went through this much pain. I was like, you know, that's it's interesting, but it's kind of mean. That's why I always defend rich people, no matter what. And somebody's like, oh, you have to give money. The rich people need to. I'm like, you have no idea what they're going through. Like, I'm not saying all of them have gone through what I'm going through, but I'm just saying it's so irrelevant, because that's when you're in a narcissistic relationship, or you have a narcissistic parent that does have money. That's the only way in which love is given. But yet that's their only complaint. You only love me because of my money. Yeah, I don't. I love you for everything else that you cannot give me. But then money's the only thing that makes me feel loved by you. So now that bond has happened, right? But then you're
Wow.
shamed out of it also. You're being shamed out of, well, you love me for my money, but you really, really don't. Like, I never just loved him for his money, ever, ever, ever. But I've grown to now be like, you know what? He offers nothing, absolutely nothing other than his money. But he did that on his own. That was
Yeah.
his programming, right? So everybody loves him for his money, and that's it. And no matter how much me and my siblings have jumped through hoops to prove to him otherwise, which was failed, 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 right? It was always wrong. There was nothing. You can never, ever. So with narcissists, there is no amount of hoops one can go through that can ever get them to see you. Okay. And they just don't know how to respect. They don't have respect. They don't have empathy. They don't have communication skills. So it's nothing to do with you. And this is what one of the learning lessons is, it's coming to understand and coming to terms with, it had nothing to do with me ever, 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 because that's just who they are, regardless of what I do, what you do, what they do. It doesn't matter, because they're exactly the same person. Like you said, it's just constant state of projection, because there's an inability to actually sit with self and be like, and contemplate, or even self-reflect, because that would burn them. It's like getting, to a vampire and putting like garlic. Is it garlic? Yeah. If you do that, they would just, that's what self-reflection would do to a narcissist. So it's impossible but to project. But as a child, when you're brought up with that projection, you truly believe, well, if this is how my parents see me, then this must be what the world sees me. Then this is how I must see myself, because I can't lie to myself anymore. I can't think I'm a great person when in reality, I must be so shitty. That's how they see me. And to us, parents are our gods. They are the reflection. They are reflecting back to us who we are as children. We don't know. Are they looking at us with love, or are they looking at us with disgust? Who are we for them? And due to that, that's the mirror that we say, oh, then this is who I am. And whatever the words that they have used with us as children are the same words that we use as adults, thinking they're our words in our heads. And that's why it's so terrifying for me to say this today, because it's their word saying, nobody knows our secrets. But that's me now telling myself, well, nobody's allowed to know this stuff. And that's the beauty of discovering this. It's just, it's so I'm like so hot and like,
You're
okay,
amazing.
yes, go ask, say whatever you need to say. Yes.
Oh my gosh, you're amazing. Oh, it just, oh, you can just see how much, yeah, just what we are raised with, how much it affects us in our life as adults and how long it affects us. This is very real. So it's just beautiful to be able to see this authentic and vulnerability of seeing like this is what it looks like, because I know other people are feeling the same way, and just hopefully they can free themselves as we're freeing ourselves as well too, of just that's what matters, speak what you need to speak. So okay, so we talked about your childhood, what that looked like. I want to talk about how that affected you. Obviously, like we're seeing some of it, like the fear coming up right now of talking about this. How has that affected you then? So you know you're not a child anymore, you move out of your parents' home, you are looking into a relationship to get married. How did it start affecting your life then as you moved out of their home and being in relationships and getting married? How has that affected you? And then stay tuned, everybody, because we're going to talk about the lessons, all the lessons learned from this that we're going to get to at the end. But we have to hear the journey. We have to hear this part of it, of how it impacted her along the way. This is very important. But then we are going to share all these golden nuggets at the end of the beautiful lessons learned. So we're not going to stay in this icky energy, or we're going to move through it and see like, wow, and be grateful for it and to find peace. So we're not the victim. And this is what we want for ourselves by having this conversation and exposing it to the world. And this is also something we want to give you permission to do the same thing. So ride this journey with us. Okay. Continue.
Okay. So thanks, Mel. That was beautiful. So as an adult, it gave me permission to look for relationships. Like in my head, I was like, I'll never marry anyone like dad or my mom, ever, 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 ever. Like that was the conscious. I'm like consciously aware of that. But inside my body, what was so familiar was someone like them. Okay. Now, it wasn't that I was searching for it. I would look for everybody that was the opposite of that. But my body felt safe and comfortable and familiar with people who had very similar ways of being in the world, which allowed me to be like the savior, the helper, what I was for them, the perfect image of a wife, the perfect blah, blah, blah. So I attracted my first narcissist and I married him because to me, I was like, oh my God, this is perfect. Although I knew it all along, I knew that I would get divorced. I knew the whole thing. Like I had all this knowing, but I knew also I had to go through it because I didn't know. And I got married late. I was 29 years old or 30. Okay. Late for back then. But I didn't know narcissists exist. I didn't even know the pain I harbored inside my body. I did not know I was disassociated. This was unknown to me. I was the happy, bubbly, active, having fun in the world all the time, right? And everything was always working out for me, to be quite honest. That disassociated happily, I was manifesting left, right, and center all the time. So to me, I felt like I was the luckiest person in the world. But the luckiest person in the world was completely disassociated from her emotions. So when I did marry that narcissist, the malignant narcissist, everything showed up. I didn't even know why this was happening. I had no recollection. I'm like the spiritual being. I come from a spiritual family, blah, 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 blah. So as an adult, the shock of being exposed to, and you'll notice on other episodes we've talked about, the episode I think is coming out soon. Oh no, it's already came out. The one where the narcissist is your shadow. So little did I know that my shadow, or the disassociated version of me, the one with all the feelings and the shadow that I created of who I am and the beliefs of who I am, came into fruition. And the way I spoke to myself internally that I couldn't hear because it was part of my program. So it sounded normal and natural, but it wasn't. It was like, oh, you're not that pretty. You should lose weight. Da, 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 da. Do this with yourself. Talk better. Don't talk too much. Talk a little. There was always so much stuff happening. Well, this happens to you because you're this. That all came out, and the malignant narcissist was speaking to me the way I was speaking to myself all these years, but I'm disassociated, so I wasn't aware. So when I married that, everything came out. I was like, I was in hell. It was hell. The whole journey was shit. It was the biggest shock of my life. But through that shock, I got to discover who my mother and father were, right? And to come to terms with it, because now I have a language for it. I had narcissism. It just so happened that a year after, that's when my mother's like, it's not fair. You got divorced. I'm going to do it too. And so she decided, her and dad, to get divorced. It was the ugliest divorce in the planet. Even then, when I went and shared with my dad how I was feeling, he humiliated me and yelled at me and told me not to ever speak about it again. It's not none of my business. It was not my divorce. It's his divorce. Okay. Which I was like, about, I'm the kid suffering through this. It's like, deal with it. You're old enough. So even in that dynamic, so as an adult, I was still dealing with all that. And remember, I just left a narcissistic relationship. I was suicidal. I was looking for therapy. I was looking for any help. And then that happened. So it was just mayhem. At the same time, in parallel to that, my sister is doing all her narcissism. She's married to a narcissist, again, two narcissists. They kicked me out of their house in the midst of all the hell I was going through. My dad stood by their side. It was just hell. Basically, I was being attacked left, right, and center, not knowing how did my life turn from me happy-go-lucky to this insanity. Just to understand that inside of me lived another being that was terrified, that was humiliating herself, that didn't have any self-respect, didn't have any self-worth, zero self-worth. Everyone else mattered but her. Everyone mattered but her. To discover that, well, how do I matter to myself now? This doesn't even make sense. There's nobody around to take care of me. My friends left me because I was always saving them, helping them, channeling for them, helping them out. When I was in need and I was in this crazy state, they left. My parents went psychotic on me. My sister was a complete no-show and just spat me out. It was absolute hell. So as a grown-up, the shock of it is, how did I never see this before? How did I do this till I was 30? And why now? And what do I need to learn and understand? And that's when I went through the whole, well, mom is, but dad isn't, then dad is, and confusion, a whole bunch of confusion. Everything within me was broken down. I was smashed to the floor. And then as I started to work on myself, and this is when I shifted careers, I was an interior designer, and I said, I want to save every woman in the world from narcissistic abuse. And this is when I studied it, became a professional, studied neuro-linguistic programming. I was already a Reiki healer for 10 years prior to that. And I went into this realm and started to help and help and help, because that's all I knew what to do. Because even when all this happened, nobody could tell me, how can I take care of me? I didn't know. So again, it was like, okay, now I'm going to leave interior design and I'm going to just help every woman on the planet to feel better, because that's all I knew how to do. And I did that. I did that for years until I married a second narcissist, and this was covert, and I learned my lesson, and it took years. So we can have the knowledge. I had all the knowledge. Trust me, these women all, like, they blossomed after. They changed careers. They left the crazy bosses. They left their partners. They left their parents. Like, they changed their lives. And I was still stuck where I was. Okay. Repeating the pattern over and over again, because I didn't do it for me ever, because I didn't know how. Didn't know, how do I do it for me? I need someone like me in my life to help me get to where I want. That's what I kept wishing for. Can I find a therapist or a coach who's like me, who can do for me what I do for others? And that was truly my wish and desire. Okay. To only discover that I needed to do this for me. And then Source did send me a beautiful woman, Kathy, who did help me. And she was very similar to how I do healing. And so it resonated, and she did help me. So finally I could leave my second narcissist. But as an adult, it feels like it's so immersed in the bloodstream and so part of your identity that it's so hard at times to see the difference between normal and completely abnormal. because what's completely abnormal looks normal, is considered normal to me. But then I would hear other people's stories. How are you with your parents? And I would hear like, oh my God, me and my dad talk about everything. And and he hugs me and does all this. And I'm like, what does that even mean? What does that even mean? I don't understand it. And that's when the difference would show. And that's when the difference would show between, hey, so is that normal? Or is that too much? And that's where the confusion begins. And that's where, like, you're trying to decipher. This is the thing, your brain doesn't understand, but you're hearing other people have different experiences. But I used to share those experiences too, but it was a pretend. Are they pretending? Is it real? What's real? Is this correct? So it turned out that my tolerance level for pain and humiliation and disrespect was zero. It was extremely high. Sorry, it was 100%. I had 100% tolerance for horrible behavior, for disrespect, for people playing the victim, and me constantly rushing to help and save and bubble up and cheer up and all this. My tolerance was so incredibly high to any kind of pain and disrespect. And my self-worth was so low that I didn't know I needed a thread to figure out how to take care of me. I didn't understand what that meant. Nobody has taken care of me ever. I never took care of me. All my friends didn't take care of me. Therapists, I would go to therapists and coaches and psychologists and psychiatrists. And because I attune and channel, they would start, like, they would hardly hear my story. They would start to complain about their life. And I'm not saying this when I was in my 40s. I'm saying when I was 12, okay, and 30 and 40, like anytime, they would be like, well, and they would just start sharing, and I would channel and start giving them messages. This happened my whole life. So there was no one that was helping me ever. I didn't know what it meant for somebody to take care of me or validate me or respect me. So as an adult, it was very tough. You cannot tell the difference between what's normal and what isn't. And you can't even trust that what people are sharing as normal is true or not, because I had to lie about it and I had to believe my lie. So are they lying to themselves too? Are they really being abused at home but lying to themselves? Or is this true? And I would go and see how they're like with their parents just to make sure. And it turns out fathers hug their daughters willingly. It turns out that mothers will care more about their daughters' stories, okay, than themselves taking over the topic. It turns out that parents are there for their kids and will sit and listen to their pain and take care of them and stand up for them. Unlike my father, who would stand up for everyone else that was rude and mean to me and put them on a pedestal and invite them over to the house, regardless of how they spoke to me, and force me to be polite. And I discovered that parents can be there for their kids. And so that was the adult journey. And at the end of the day, I discovered I'm the only one who can take care of me. And with that one therapist, Kathy, she's an energy healer. And she helped me come back to my confidence. She helped me come back to a space where I can trust who I am. And my biggest fear was I was always doubt. I doubted myself. I couldn't trust my intuition and I couldn't trust anything. I could only trust it for others. I couldn't trust it for myself. And that's the true pain. And I'm still like, I'm starting to purge today. This didn't end. This is like Mel knows I was just, very abused 2 weeks ago by my dad and my sister's new husband, extremely abused. And that's why I think today I was like, you know what? I need to talk about this. It needs to come out that you can do all the work and you can know everything logically. But the day that you decide that I'm more important than any of them is the day that the mourning starts, because that's when the true death of this family happens. And I think this is what I'm going through. But there were so many beautiful lessons. Like, I couldn't have been the person I am today if I didn't go through every single aspect of what I've gone through. It's impossible I would have been this highly attuned. I could possibly trust all the channeling that comes through. And if you channel or you receive inspiration coming from a narcissistic family, it's so hard to trust that because it sounds like mumble jumble. It doesn't sound real. There's no proof, right? But you end up trusting yourself more than anything else. When you identify the narcissists and toxic people, emotionally immature people, call it whatever you like in your life, you end up learning so much about yourself. Freedom starts to show itself. I mean, I raged from the minute I left my first husband. I learned how to rage, and the freedom in raging and screaming and yelling at all of them was amazing. But it didn't mean I was free. It didn't mean I was free. It just meant that I finally found my voice and I can do it, but I would still be shamed and guilted for it. Right. And so this is the thing that needs to shift and change today. So this is the idea of you can all still be suffering till today. You can be the best healers, the best channels, the best psychic. It doesn't matter. You can be the best person in the world. But if you've had narcissistic parents and there's pain in your body still, trust me, you can help the whole world. And you can also help yourself. And it's okay if you're still in pain. It's really okay if you're still in pain. You don't have to be, because that is the narcissistic abuse. That is the persona. I'm over it now. I've worked it through. I love myself. And I hear so many people say, I just love myself now so much. I'm like, this is bullshit. You know, it really, really, really is. It can't be true, you know? Yeah. So,
Wow. Thank you for sharing all of that. This is amazing to connect with you in this way. So yeah, I want to talk about just the lessons of what you've learned from it. Like even that book behind you, Discover the Gifts of Your Disempowered Self. You're all about, teaching people to or showing people how to basically love the parts of themselves they don't love, their shadow self, their disempowered self, the parts of themselves they beat themselves up for, feel like they have to hide it, and then that's where shame is and all this stuff. It's about releasing all of that. So obviously, like, there's the pain that you have from this experience, which obviously I could feel it. And I'm just like, even started to tear up, like listening to this beautiful soul that has gone through so much intense pain and still is just this beautiful light in this world. So I want to hear the lessons that you were able to learn from that parent through the hard times, the good times, and just be real about where you are today and how you can see the light in all of this and be able to free yourself while still shedding the layers and going through the pain as a normal person, healthy person would.
as a normal person.
Normal. I don't even know what that is.
Looks like.
Yeah. Scratch that word. I don't even know what that means. So healthy,
Nobody knows.
trying to be
Healthy. Healthy norm, a healthy norm. Yes. So my book, Discover the Gifts of Your Disempowered Self, it is all about shadow work and limiting beliefs. And the reason this book came to fruition, the reason I do what I do, and the reason I think I've done this my whole life, and the great training my parents did for me is they were shadows, right? Or consumed by shadows. Narcissists are the shadow come to life. And so I was able to love them unconditionally with their shadow. So one of the lessons I learned is because there was this learning ability of, I'm going to love them no matter how terrible they are, right? I'm going to help them. I'm going to make them feel better. It got me into the career path that I'm in 100%. Because even as an interior designer, I had a little desk, a little office for anyone in the office to come share their problems and I'll solve it for them, right? So I was always doing this. So it was a great training to let me know how to be such a great listener because I listened more than anything else. And when something would show up, then I would speak. But it trained me to be an amazing listener. First of all, my father wouldn't let me interrupt. It was unheard of to interrupt. Until this day, if anyone interrupts, is like, what? Nobody can hear me talk? You know, he's got this, is anxious. He always wants people just to listen to him. So I learned to really listen and fine tune how I hear people. My mother, the same thing, right? I can't speak. She must speak. But I can only speak if it's advice for her or an idea for her, but not about myself. So it really fine tuned me to attune to other people spectacularly, right? Now, the better thing is because when we are with narcissists, a lot of us actually are dealing with their wounded child. We're not talking to this adult. As empaths, we're sensing the brokenness in them. their shadow, the pain that they're in. And so we talk to that version of them. Therefore, we become their caregivers and they're sane people. So we're doing that. Now, the funny thing is, so we love them no matter what. The funny thing is that we through that learning, that was the only way I could discover, well, if I can do it for them, if I can love them so conditionally with shitty personalities, can I do that for me? Never done it for me. So what I learned is that, oh, if I have the ability to be so loving, unconditionally loving to beings that were so cruel and mean and heartless and zero empathy, right? And only like entitled and selfish, then, and if I believe, let's say I believe all those things about myself, then I must be able to offer that same love towards me. That was the thread that I found. That can I give myself the magic of me back to me? I've given it to the world. Can I give it to me? Because the me inside is feeling the way these narcs feel because of how much I've absorbed their energy. So this is one of the greatest lessons. It's like, well, if I can do it for them, I can do it for me. How can I do it for me? Let me do it for me. So now the third lesson that was, does that make sense, Mel?
Yes. So I got the first lesson was like a deep love. You were able to love them so deeply, even with their shitty behavior, that you realized, oh, I should now give this love to myself. So rather, because we try to feel love through other people, then it doesn't work. And you finally realize, oh, I'm not feeling it, or I'm not getting it back, or they're not learning from me and giving it back. And so you learn to give it back to self. So that's huge. And then the second one was you were a really amazing listener. You really learned how to listen to others and be able to attune to them and know when to speak and when not to speak. Right?
Yes. Perfect.
Okay.
Okay, thank you.
This is amazing.
So the third lesson I learned from my parent, and I'm still learning. I mean, I haven't detoxed completely. I'm still learning. But the third lesson that I was taught or I learned deeply about this is that I need to trust who I am. Because if I don't, then I'm easily gaslighted and manipulated. So that inner voice inside, and this was the longest journey I had to go on, is there's an inner voice inside that is always speaking, but it's very, very kind. Because we're not used to kindness, we're used to being humiliated and disrespected and spoken down and ignored, the silent treatment. Like, if you want to know a lot of the signs, you can actually go to episode 7, What is Narcissism and How It Affects Your Life? And episode 14 actually explains a lot. So that they're all the same, whether it's a partner or just, you've got to know all these things. These are really important. So check out these episodes after this episode. What really helps is that the greatest lesson is like, oh my goodness, right now, there's this voice inside of me that I could never hear because there's the self-criticism now that's taken over. How can I trust myself a lot more? Obviously, everything they said is bullshit and lies and is constantly deceitful. So what it helped, all going through that, seeing the darkness so intensely and seeing it for what it is and speaking the truth of it and saying that is narcissism, that is darkness, lets you start to trust yourself and that inner voice of a whisper inside. That is one of the greatest lessons. It's like all of a sudden you're like, can I trust that voice inside that's just saying, take right instead of left? That I love you? That here, do this? Can I trust it? It's so small and silent and, somewhere there. And I've been slapped silly to ever listen to it. But I've been slapped silly by the stupidest people on the planet. The narcissists, they are truly the stupidest people. They're exactly the same. They never change or evolve or anything, You can expect the same thing. Once you know that they are and you know the cycle, you know exactly what you're expecting, You're going to walk on eggshells. You're going to feel this way and that way and that way. And that's it. But you have so much more. You've got whispers inside, guidance system. So you start to learn how to trust yourself above all else, because now you have an entire library of information of every words that you can ever trust, every way of being that you can never trust, what lies look like, what deception looks like, what manipulation. Now you got all this in comparison to what does truth feel like. Your body will end up trusting the truth inside, and it feels so good when that truth inside comes because it's so gentle and smooth and loving unlike the deception and lies that put you in fear and crunch you and contract you. Start to know the difference, and that's how you become highly attuned to your intuition. So one of the greatest lessons is trusting myself, attuning to my intuition in such a grand scale. That's what they help in. I think it's the fourth one now. So the fourth lesson that I learned, and that is really, really helpful, is the brighter you are as a being, the more shit you will experience. So what I know for sure is that the more honest you are, the more vulnerable you are, the more joyous you are, the more of your essence that you are going to experience them wanting to latch on more, to suck you dry, because you have their answers. You have what they think is their light because they're entitled, right? So the brighter that you are, okay, but maybe you're not confident. Brightness doesn't mean I'm confident. So I'm very, very bright. I'm emanating this light that they're like, oh, I love it. Let's take as much as possible for ourselves because they're very selfish. But the more light you have, the more they will want to take it from you. That means you are very high in your voltage of higher self or light being. So the more narcissist in your life means that your voltage is so much higher than anyone else, your voltage of light. When you become aware of that, it's a very large indication. When you become aware of that, then you know how to disassociate from them, not from yourself anymore. You sort of distance yourself, and all of a sudden boundaries show up because there's a confidence that comes in. Okay. It's a confidence of like, oh my God, I'm really the light. I am so bright. Like the brighter you are, the more they come. Now, when you have confidence in your brightness, right? When you know that you are that, they don't even come in. They start to disappear out of your life, right? Because now you're confidently holding your light. You're not giving it away. Like, here, take, please, just leave me alone, take, right? So you're a light being of the highest vibrational frequency, the more that you have them in your life. And if you've come here as a child into that vibration, is simply because your light is so intense that you needed to learn what you need to learn from them and continue with your light to help everyone else and yourself. So that's the fourth lesson. You're a very high vibrational light being.
Wow. Okay. I have to add to this because this reminds me of the episode we did just recently that people really liked about the 5 shocking signs of why they were attracted to you. This is an amazing one. And this is going to build up your self-confidence for those of you that feel like, what did I do wrong to attract a narcissist? What's wrong with me? It's time to spin that perspective, build you back up. We want to play a piece in building your confidence back up and realize the reason they were attracted to you, like Rain just said, is because you are such a bright light, such a high vibration. They want that. And in their twisted way, somehow though, they go in and they chip away at it and kind of take that away from you as if that's fun for them, some subconscious way of a game for them, like everyone else is too easy or something. So just know you are incredible. So if you have attracted a narcissist in your life, in a relationship with a partner, you're amazing. So I need to tell you that you're amazing. You're incredible. Learn the lessons you need to learn, build yourself back up, and then they no longer have to interfere into your sphere anymore. And you can continue to be that bright light and grow even more and start attracting beautiful light beings to you now that you've learned the lesson. So anyway, had to share that.
Thank you, Mel. Yes, that's amazing. Honestly, that episode is wonderful. And the fifth thing is, are we number 5 now?
Okay. Yeah. So 4 was like, notice the bright light. You were a very bright light.
Yes. The 5th one is, this is the coolest one. Okay. You end up learning never to explain yourself to another being on this planet ever again. Now, the narcissist will always want you to explain yourself. They will always defeat you, defend themselves, put you down. You'll be the blame. What I learned, the greatest lesson I learned is simply do not interact. Whatever they say, okay, whatever they do, you do not defend yourself at all. You end up learning that it's pointless to have any kind of discussion back and forth. It's pointless because your energy gets depleted. That is how they suck that light, that magical light we were talking about. That's how they suck it out. By you but I didn't do that. You didn't get it. You don't understand. Only did it because I love you. Well, this isn't love, blah, blah, blah. That's how they suck it out. How does our light get depleted? When you have to defend yourself, explain yourself, hoping this person can understand. Now, they do understand. They're not idiots. They can't manipulate you this well if they were idiotic. Nobody's saying they're idiots. Okay. We're the idiots in this because we think they don't understand and we want to keep explaining it. But that's how they take our light away. So what I learned, the biggest lesson is nothing. When my mother calls, which I only speak to her once every 2 months, she's the nicest person. She's everything. When she starts to do her victimhood, I just start to sing a song. I throw compliments at her because she gets all like your skin is still so young. She's like, oh, really? I use this, and the topic changes. Right? They love themselves. You compliment their looks. They get all happy and they forget that they're in their victimhood. Like, how did you stay so young? Oh, show me that beautiful dress you have. It is. It's so pretty. And I got it. And da, da, da. And before they dive into the victimhood, you catch them with another compliment. No more do I defend myself, explain myself, or tell her stop being a victim, or try to teach her who she needs to be, or help her out of her victimhood. Right?
Wow.
This is the lesson learned. You end up leaving your energies for you. You know, if some people don't understand, who cares? That's the message. You become a who cares if they don't get it, right? Is it that important that they get to see who I truly am and appreciate me? Why is it that important? I end up having a headache, a migraine. I'm half pissed with my kids after. I'm not in the mood to see anyone. I like hate the way I look. For what? You know, to explain to a narcissist, an emotionally immature human being, my point of view that they will never get. That's the learning. That's the learning lesson. And I think these are the biggest lessons so far. There's so much more. There's so much more. And we all have so many more details, of course. And finding your voice. I think the final one is you finally find your voice. So I'm saying I never yelled my entire life. I was always a giggly, happily person. And then after my first narcissistic husband, I yelled. I yelled at my mom, my dad, and everyone. Anyone who come my way, right? And it felt so freaking good. There's a freedom. You start to give yourself freedom to be the bad girl, right? You're too loud. You're too aggressive. So the good thing is you've been the good girl for so long that it suffocated the hell out of you. Another lesson is now you're like this demonic entity who's like ready to rip anyone in half. And there's a freedom in it and there's a might in it. And it'll dissipate. You won't stay like that forever, but it just feels really good. It feels really amazing. And it's this kind of freedom that, you know what? I'm not a good girl anymore. I don't want to be polite. I don't want to be nice. I don't want to care about how you feel or what you think. I'm just going to say what I want to say and I'm going to walk away. Right. And that there's a freedom in that. That's why I keep saying, like, just love whoever you are. Right. You like screaming out, just fine. Be it. Who cares? Right. At the end of the day, they don't really care because they have an opinion about you anyway that's never going to change. And the opinion is this woman or this man has too much light, right, for their own good. We're going to suck it out because we have none and we're jealous. Oh, the jealousy. You're going to feel jealous. Your parents are jealous of you. They're jealous of your joy. They're jealous of your happiness. They're jealous of your success. They're jealous of everything about you, right? So when you stop explaining yourself, they have nothing. You have nothing. You become useless to them, which is perfect. I hope these were enough for now.
This is amazing. This is amazing. Well, it made me realize too, when you said, like, and I can relate to this too, just the being quiet, not having my voice, just trying to be the good girl, trying to make everybody happy, people pleaser, all of that. And then you get to the point where it's like, so that I feel like is unhealthy. I feel like you're stuffing everything. That's super toxic and unhealthy to be like that. But then what I did is I went to the opposite side of just like the rage mantra. I finally am like letting it out. And I'm just like, I'm so sick of this, or angry or upset, or like, how dare you? Like, no, I get my voice. I'm being like demanding of my voice. And then I realized, okay, that's a little unhealthy and toxic too, the way that I'm doing it. But in that, it gave me the freedom to feel what that feels like and to realize, do you know what? There's some people, they need that. And I remember talking to you, Rain, when you said, I was so nice to my family. I would be so loving. I'd be all these nice things. And you know what? They would walk, you were like, they would walk all over me. They were rude to me. They disrespected me. And you know what? You're like, when they respected me is when I said, hey, when you come in my home, you take your shoes off, you do this, do not do this in my home. Like you had to go out of like your natural essence that you said is just normally the people you're around, you just want to be loving and you're respectful and they're respectful. But when you realize when you're with these narcissists, they don't play that same game. So you do have to put on your mask, your protection when you're with them. But you're not going to be able to do that and protect yourself if you do not know how to open your mouth and to use your voice. So it's okay if you screw around and you're super extreme with it and bouncing all over until you can come into alignment and to know, okay, this people, I can be my kind, loving self and it's natural and it's easy. But this person, I have to be on guard. I have to have my protection. I have to be ready. And this is the way that I need to speak to these people. However, knowing when you're in your essence, it gets exhausting having to be around those people. So then you pick and choose, okay, I can be around my parents maybe a couple times a year when I am comfortable putting on my protective mask. But other than that, I'm going to just choose to not be around them and be around people where I can be my essence, which is just light and loving and all of this. But you have everything you need within you to be how you need to be and to protect yourself and to be safe and to feel good inside your own body. So we're giving you permission to do all of these things. And these are a lot of beautiful lessons that we hope that you guys can see in yourself as well that have experience with narcissist family members.
Actually, you're so right with that. Thank you for sharing that and reminding me. It's so true, Mel. Like when you are solidly boundary based, and it's terrifying when I first started it and being like, nope, yes, no, take off your shoes, do this, do that. I would have to prepare like 3 hours ahead of time to find the courage to be that person because it's a personality that I'm not, but it's a personality that we all need to have because there's nothing wrong with it. We've been shamed out of it. And it's actually a personality that works. And it's a personality that I think every single empath and light worker needs to have. Like this needs to be in our toolbox, right? The assertiveness and the what are my values and what is okay with me and what isn't. So it's like when I say take off your shoes in my house, you're going to take them off. You're not going to see your old father and his wife that's with him that also does whatever she wants. No, it's take off your shoes in my house. There's no need for you to put my shoes. Take them off. Do this, do that, and when they blame you, you're like, well, I'm sorry, I'm not going to do anything for you anymore. Like being that person does not mean that you're mean or selfish or cruel. This is the crazy part. Like in here, the fear was like, if I say that I'm such a bad person, like I'm being like them and mean, but it isn't actually. You're giving yourself permission to have boundaries. You're giving yourself permission to value yourself and like what you deem is right and wrong. Why is it only what they deem right and wrong? It's not scary. It feels scary. And then you just conquer it one step at a time. You conquer it one step at a time. You'll feel the terrifying. You can be terrified and conquer it. And you can be terrified and conquer it. And it just takes practice, practice, practice. But my one suggestion is avoid contact as much as possible. Just as much as possible. If you can see them half an hour, if you have to see them every day, half an hour a day. If you can, once a week. Like limit the time till your tolerance because it's your light at the end of the day. You're the priority. Your light is important because you've got a whole bunch of other humans depending on you for your light. If you're a parent, you have your own kids depending on your light. Okay. You cannot deplete it. So you become a priority. So even if you want to take it as I choose to become a priority, not selfish, I am my own priority. I have to take care of myself for everyone else around me who needs my light, not takes my light. And that's where you start to like differentiate. That's why I speak to my mom once every 2 months. I noticed anything more than that, my light diminishes and I'm an ass. Okay. Because now I'm reflecting them. I'm becoming them. I've been burnt. So that's the way to do it. Just one step at a time. One step at a time. Just like, am I worthy? Am I worth it? Am I worth it? Am I worth it standing up for myself? Am I worth it? Is it worth it for me to care about my light, about my health, about my mental well-being, about my skin, about my body? Since my dad came and he stayed here for 3 months, I bloated like the blowfish for protection. They go, everything in my body, like everything, I'm still till now, he left 2 weeks ago, but the trauma of what happened 2 weeks ago is still in the body. I'm bloated like a blowfish. And that's how my body can protect itself, because it's like the further away I am from you, the more space you have for yourself. So if they punch any holes and punch you, it's not hurting you. That's what the body, that's how body protects, you know? So if anyone is bloated or going through water retention, you're in a state of flight or fight and freeze. And this is one of the symptoms of how your body is trying to protect you.
Wow. Wow. Holy cow. And that just hit me like, and then we shame our body. Oh, dang it. I'm fat. I'm this. And then we beat ourselves up when it's like, we should be like, thank you. Thank you, body, for protecting my emotional state. Physically, you're physically doing it because emotionally, I don't know how to do it right now and take care of myself. And so it's just naturally just doing its thing. How beautiful. And that's where you can have a perspective shift of like, oh my gosh, look at my body and my big belly right now. Thank you. I love you. I'm so sorry you had to deal with this. I will keep you safe until you come back home to your natural state or peace and calm or whatever. Like, anyways, that just hit me of like another thing where we beat ourselves up and are so hard on ourselves when we should actually giving ourselves praise and love and thank yous. Wow.
Oh, that was beautiful. I totally agree. Totally agree. Yes.
Wow.
Oh,
Okay. Well, this was an incredible episode. I sure had a good time with this. Okay. So everybody, we hope you found value in this episode. I'm sure you did. Please give us a thumbs up, connect with us, hit that subscribe button. We're going to have lots of great episodes. Also in the description, we have our buy me a coffee link where we have lots of beautiful jewelry. I'm wearing some of it right now. If you're watching the video, I'm always wearing our cute jewelry. Check it out. You can support us that way. We also have e-guides and ebooks to support you on your personal growth journey. So check that all out. And then make sure to comment. And if you're a new subscriber, please put in the comment that you're a new subscriber and add to that, what was your key takeaway from this episode? What did you get from this episode that can help you maybe come home back to you or feel some more self-love or something that you can practice yourself to build yourself up? But we'd love to hear that from you. And then if you love this episode and you feel like it's going to resonate with other friends or family in your life, please share it with them. And make sure to watch this next episode. Yeah, right here. We'll link it up right here. So just click on that and you can go ahead and watch one of our other episodes and we'll check you out there. Bye.